a triple threat. I have a triple play piece of trivia for March. You mentioned Arizona in 1997, and we both said they knocked out 3 number 1 seeds to get to the national championship. Who were those 3 number 1 seeds?
Well, Kansas was the number 1, but they didn't have the best record that one. Obviously, when they beat Kentucky in the national championship game, right?
That's 2.
And then, let's see, Final Four in 97. The other team, was that North Carolina? Was the other one?
Got them all.
Yeah.
Got them all.
Look at you.
Got them all.
It's hard. It's hard being this smart.
Oh, look at that. It's hard being that smart. Look at that.
That national championship game.
That was lucky. Not
only told some people I knew what I was talking about because I picked Arizona that year on a total whim, but I must admit it also made me some money.
But that was the first Roy Williams team that was really supposed to be favored to win the national championship that lost the Sweet 16. I remember how shocked everyone was when they lost the Sweet 16.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the next year, Kentucky won with Tubby Smith when they had a great comeback against Duke in the Elite Eight.
No, don't mention that.
Yeah. In St. Petersburg, if I remember right.
Yeah, please. I don't want to remember.
I don't remember where these games were, but you're right. In 2018, it was in San Antonio. 2016, it was in Houston. So you were right about that, Brian.
I thought so.
Yeah, I was so happy about that.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah, it was great. Wonderful. Anyways, Brian, I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, me too, Brian.
And we'll talk to you soon, bud.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I love y'all. I will call in soon.
Absolutely.
Have a good one, Brian.
You'll definitely be the analyst and announcer of that triple threat match. There you go. So, by the way, Jeff says that he wouldn't want you involved with the fight, but I still think it would be really, really funny.
Carl says, wow, Mark, hard being that smart. Look out when Jeff calls back, which will probably be any second now.
Oh my God. Anyways, I do want to finish up with football, and over 72 hours, 48 hours, obviously the Indianapolis Colts made a move, and they were looking for a quarterback, obviously trading away Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz goes to the Washington Commanders, which is one of the worst names.
Commandos. The commies. That's what me and Gerhard was saying.
I saw those memes too. Yeah.
One of the worst names ever created, by the way. But I think it's a good move by obviously Washington. But Matt Ryan heads over there to Indianapolis. And do I think this is a good move for them? Absolutely. They're ready to win now. And I think Matt Ryan still has the capabilities of bringing a team to a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl. Smart quarterback, still has still understands the game as well as he does in a Frank Wright offense with a running offense with Taylor behind the line of scrimmage that can run the ball as good as anybody in the league. And even some of the weapons that they have. Michael Pittman really broke out this year as one of the best, one of the younger top end wide receivers in the league. Speedy, you look at Matt Ryan, this is a perfect fit. If there was anywhere Matt Ryan was going to go, was Indianapolis, because I thought Frank Wright and him would be, the place, or even Kyle Shanahan, and maybe right. San Francisco. But this was a great move by Indianapolis.
Yeah, Matt Ryan's always been that quarterback throughout his career that he's had mostly good or great years, but he's had some bad years mixed up in between. So the Colts were able to get him for just a 3rd round pick. Now the salary cap hit, which also presents the Falcons $40 million in dead cap, definitely hurts, but we knew the Colts were going to make that kind of splash. They wouldn't have traded Carson Wentz if they didn't have somebody else in mind with that kind of money, because the Colts had a lot of money before the Wentz thing, and they shed $28 million after that. So they had $69 million in cap. So they were able to take that kind of thing on. Last year was a bit of a down year, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but really Kyle Pitts and, like we were saying earlier, Kyle Pitts and Cordero Patterson were really his only offensive weapons. Calvin Ridley only played 3 games. The other secondary receivers really didn't do well. They had very little running game, probably besides Patterson. And that was really only...
They didn't protect him either.
Well, yeah. And their offensive line is below average. They've drafted a lot early, but it's still below average as a whole. And for a guy that's not mobile, that doesn't help in today's game. Now, the year before that, 2020, he had a nice year, 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions on 45-81. Again, not his peak year, but still very good. That's the kind of thing you can trust out of Matt Ryan kind of year to year. 2016 was his MVP year. Then he was a little down. Then he was back up in 2018. So the Colts might be getting him on that, according to that pattern, on that kind of year to make that kind of thing work. Now, it's a different type of offense than what he's used to in Atlanta. He's always had good receiving talent in Atlanta, whereas the Colts have Pittman, but their depth after that is not great. But the Falcons, I don't think, ever had a running back like Jonathan Taylor skill-wise. Devontae Freeman had those 2 years, but that was really it. Michael Turner had a couple, but that was really it. Jonathan Taylor was the best running back performance-wise in football last year. And Nyheim Hines is not a bad pass-catching back either.
I think also when you look at Indianapolis, I don't think they're done. I think in the draft, they'll probably draft a wide receiver going into the draft. And like we said, Jeff says this is a 6-man draft when it comes to wide receivers. And he believes 5 or 6 will be drafted in the first round. I don't think 5 or 6. I could see 4 being drafted, and some of them might fall out and be in the beginning of the second round. So maybe the Colts move up. Maybe want to trade with the Jets, where they're going to have to give up a significant amount to move up in that position. But the Jets, who have 2 second-round draft picks there, who's the other team that has 2 second-round draft picks going into this draft?
Seattle. Now that they traded for the Russell Wilson with that.
Seattle too. So maybe the Colts trade up with Seattle to land somebody like one of these wide receivers that fall into the second round. But
I guess the Texans do now too with the Deshaun Watson trade.
Right. So I mean, I look at Indianapolis. They were a championship team this year. Okay. I really do. I thought that if the Indianapolis Colts made the playoffs this year, they would have caused a lot of problems for a lot of teams, especially with Taylor's running game and the way they play defense. They could get to the quarterback. I thought that this team was absolutely made for the playoffs. Now, Carson Wentz in the second half of the season really fell off. After that Thursday night game when they beat the Patriots, I think it was a Thursday or a Saturday.
Well, he didn't do much in that game.
It was a Saturday night.
It was the Arizona game he did a lot in, and that was
no,
a Saturday
but he made plays in that game that won them the game.
And the Jet game.
I mean, he
I
made
mean,
plays.
that was hard.
He made plays in that game that really showed up, and I even in the fourth quarter against the Patriots, he threw the ball pretty well. He made some pretty timely passes in that game that helped them win the game. Now, Carson Wentz in the last 3-4 games of the season really cost, I think, Indianapolis a chance to even make the playoffs. They were going into the final game of the season. They had a lot of things had to fall their way for them to make the playoffs. It just didn't happen.
Well, it's because they lost to the Raiders. Raiders and the Jaguars last 2 weeks. They were in a position to make it. It's just that those two losses.
They played well against the Raiders too. It's just the defense didn't. They lost in a high-scoring game. I think it was on a game when he field goal.
But if they would have beaten the Jaguars, they would have made it. Playoffs. Right. Yeah. So I mean that's like unforgivable to lose that game.
I think when you think of Indianapolis and who they are as an organization, bringing in a Matt Ryan, a very classy, very respectable quarterback in the NFL. A lot of people respect him. Hall of Famer. He will be a Hall of Famer. I think a guy like that, you bring him to a team that needs leadership. And let's be honest, Carson Wentz was not a leader in that locker room. I watched Hard Knocks. If anybody didn't watch, that was the first Hard Knocks in the regular season they had. They followed the Indianapolis Colts. There was something going on in that locker room that just didn't make any sense. And I didn't know it was Carson Wentz really until the end of the season when people were saying that he was a cancer in the locker room. He was a cancer in the locker room when he was over there in Philadelphia. That's why Peterson got fired. And then what happened after that, a year after? Carson Wentz gets traded. So maybe Doug Peterson is still there in Philadelphia if Carson Wentz wasn't the quarterback of that team or the quarterback that they drafted a few years ago. So I don't know what's going on with Carson Wentz. Maybe him going to Washington with a veteran coach, very well respected, and Ron Rivera, maybe can change the outlook of what this quarterback could be. But I think Matt Ryan was a perfect fit for them. I know everybody was talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, and then Baker Mayfield's name was popping up. I didn't think Baker Mayfield was going there. I really didn't. I think, and right now, the only place I think Baker is going is Pittsburgh. Now, they did bring in Mitchell Trubisky. Mitch is going to be first dibs at that spot. I think Pittsburgh decided to give Mitch the opportunity to win that spot as the number one quarterback. So if Baker gets traded there, Baker's going to be number 2 until he proves that he can be number 1. And if Mitch somehow even shows a little bit of force in the, in OTAs or in the preseason, it's his job to lose, not Baker Mayfield. And Baker really threw himself under the bus. Him forcing himself out of the Browns. I understand he wasn't happy when the Deshaun Watson story was coming out and that Deshaun was the guy that they were going after. He knew it. You heard what Matt Fontana said. They went up to Baker and his team, his agent at the combine and said, we're going after one of these top quarterbacks. So it wasn't a surprise to Baker. And why why did it take him so long to say that he wanted to be trading? Because at the time, at the combine, he never forced himself along the way out. So a lot of these stories just don't make any sense. And where Baker goes, could this ruin his career? Could this be the end of Baker Mayfield? I think he's too popular of a player for him to not get another opportunity. But I don't know if he's going to get a number 1 job unless somebody. And if I was Baker, I would sit out for half the season or quarter of the season, wait until somebody gets hurt, and then there'll be teams lining up for you. And I think that's where you go. And I don't know what the Browns are going to do, but they're going to have to waive him because he's too expensive on the cap, and they need to sign their rookies at the draft. So Baker might be waived. And if I was Baker, I'd sit out for at least the end of preseason, and then you decide where you want to go with you and your agent.
The Browns right now have $20 million in cap currently. So if they were to waive Baker, that probably is at least half, maybe more of what would be a dead cap hit as it is. So yeah, they're definitely going to have to try to way to move that contract to make that kind of thing work. Now with the Steelers,